to Sarco Showroom in this edition of Unload. Today we're going to look at a rifle that's had a long history, almost 70 years of production. First produced in 1915 in England, also produced in Australia, and also produced in India. And that is the SMLE Mark III No. 1, or the short magazine Lee Enfield. This particular rifle we're looking at is standard for the Mark III Star or Asterisk. We're looking at a gun that's about 44.5 inches long, weighs a little over 8 pounds, and the sights are set for 200 to 2,000 yards. What makes this particular gun a little rare or unusual is back in 1919, England needed to produce more guns for the war effort and for their troops. So two enterprising men from Birmingham convinced the British government they could make the guns, and what developed was what they call the peddle scheme. Two British gun makers in Birmingham peddling a scheme to make rifles to the British government. The two companies were the NFR, or National Rifle Company, NRF, National Rifle Company, or SSA, Standard Small Arms. They never produced any rifles, but what they did produce was they produced action bodies, barrels, and bolts. The British government, soon realizing that these two guys, even though they had the gun makers, the management at the firm wasn't able to follow through with production, moved production to the Enfield factory. So the gun was only made at Enfield for 1918 to 1919. This particular gun was made in Enfield, but it does have the NRF action body. And we can tell by that most of the British guns will have the maker and information right here on the right-hand side. Here, all they did was put the crown cipher for King George. On the back of the action body is where we see NRF and inspection marks from the inspectors. This particular gun being made in 1919, it made its way down to Australia. And this is one of the interesting things about British guns is all the stamps on the gun tell a story. Now, I took the rear handguard off to show you a few. We have the defense mark for Australia that was used until 1920. So we know the rifle was in Australia prior to 1920. Where its service went from there, we don't know what wars it fought in or where it was used. However, when we look at the right side of the butt plate, we see that MA, which is for Lithgow, the gun in August of 1946 was refurbished at Lithgow. Now we know it had a new barrel put on it because on the barrel we see the 46 marking, we see the Lithgow inspection marks, and we see the proof mark. Once it was redone, now Australia had a different marking for ownership, and that's the double D. So it's marked with the double D. We also know that after it was made, they changed the serial number. The original serial number, was crossed off. A new serial number was issued. That serial number is on the action and also on the bolt. So we have a refurb gun, 1946 refurb, started life in 1918, went back into service in 46. I have no idea when it was taken out of service, but one of the changes they made, which unfortunately for us modern shooters, is when they went from the Mark III to the Mark III Star. Formerly, these sights were windage adjustable. They did away with the windage, which of course made it a different pattern. Other than that, it's a standard No. 1 Mark III Star, but with a history of only being made for 1 year, which makes it a little rare. Now, if you ever get one of these, this is one of the guns that you have to get the bayonet for. This particular bayonet was made in Enfield in April of 1923, and when you put something like this on the end of this gun, it truly does make it one fearsome looking gun. But again, these things were produced in England from 1915 to 1944 by 4 different factories. In Lithgow, Australia from 1941 to 53, and in India at Ishapur from 1936 to 63. And once again, they were produced in Ishapur from 1970 to 74. Now, when it went through its refurb, they just love to mark parts. So if you look at the trigger guard, that was made at Bathurst. Our sight protector was made at the Orange factory. And the stock, our buttstock is Slazenger, which also is Australian. I think that's all the marks we have on the gun. But again, an interesting piece of history. Has an original sling on it. So if you ever get a chance to handle one of these, it's an awesome gun. And if you're into World War I, World War II, the Korean War, up to the Vietnam War, this is what your Australian troops were carrying. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on Unload.